Hi guys, it's Lindsey and Darron Nicholson from the Glo House. We just wanted to share a little quick update with you and share how God's working in our lives.
We just wanted to share a story about a man named Paul.
So we had gotten the opportunity to move into this farm that we've been working towards a little bit early. So for a few days we were carting things over this mountain to the farm from our old house to this new house. And we would always go past this community, this informal settlement called Red Hill. And the idea is that, eventually once we move into this farm, we'll work with this community and we'll work with the kids. We'll open our surf project or education program to these kids. And we've been trying to find a way to introduce ourselves to the community. So we had done some great fundraising when we were back in the States the last time with clothing, and we had taken 13 bags of suitcases back to South Africa to give Christmas gifts away. So we had divvied up the Christmas gifts between 3 different communities, and we had saved these gifts for Red Hill, but we never got the opportunity to actually give them away during Christmas season. But anyways, we were taking a load of stuff to the farm, so we came over this mountain. And then all of a sudden, our wheel burst. Our tire just completely burst in the middle of nowhere on top of this mountain. And Darron and I kind of look at each other and we're like, oh no, what do we do here? So I look over and we're literally right in front of this community. Literally got stopped right in front of Red Hill. And Darron and I are like, well, do we call somebody? Who do we call? There's no one on this side of the mountain. And I look over and I see this sign. It says, Paul's Auto Body. And I look at Darron and I said, I don't know, maybe ask Paul. So Darron gets out of the car and he goes to Paul's little shack. And Paul's wife says that he's not there at the moment. So Darron slowly is driving this car and trailer down the hill. And there's sparks coming from the tire and stuff like that. And finally, Darron just stops. He's like, I have no idea what to do here. So then we sit there for a while, and then all these kids start coming towards us. And we're like, oh, okay, this is a good way to meet a few kids and connect with them. And then we get out of the car and we're chatting, and we realize all these Christmas gifts are in the trailer. And so we finally got the opportunity. God gave us this opportunity with this total disaster, tire blowout, gave us the opportunity to give these gifts to these children in Red Hill and share our story and let them know that, hey, we're going to be right down the road from you and we'll be back. And for these kids to finally realize that there's going to be people who are working in this community, because oftentimes there's never been any volunteer groups or any organizations that work with this community, because it is a smaller community.
Yeah, the story doesn't stop there. In fact, we thought that is where our flow was going to stop. We thought that, all right, things have been going so smoothly for the past couple of weeks with moving and everything else that we were like, all right, this is it. This is where our flow stops. But you know what? It's not what our plans was. It was what God's plans was, and the way that He used us in these people's lives, and how He made built this really strong relationship with all these people. Because immediately Paul came running down the road after I had just been to his house, and he came and immediately offered his help. He came offering a brand new wheel, which, I was like, this doesn't happen. So we jacked the trailer up, and there Paul was, fixed the tire for us. We had no money on us at the time, so I told Paul that we would come back and come and say thank you for his help. So we shot into town. We came back, and and Lindsey and myself said thank you to Paul. And as time went on, we finally moved into the farm, and one of the kids asked us, when are you guys going to be back? When will we see you again? And it was then that I said, we're going to be back on Monday. So he's like, all right, we'll see you on Monday. And it was at that point that he was kind of like looking a little bit unsure. this is when I said to him, you know, we work with two things. And those two things is be where you said you would be and you do what you said you would do. And I promise you, my brother, I will be there where I said I would be. So on Monday came by and Lindsey and myself went past and the little boy was standing there and we kind of just said hello to him. And then on our way back, Lindsey wasn't with me, but I stopped and I said hello to the boy. And this is when I saw Paul. And I kind of said hello to Paul and I was like, hey, Paul, like, how you doing, man? And it was at this point when Paul was like, I'm not doing good at all, man, you know. And I asked him why, and he said, well, my mom just passed away. She was 103 years old. But it's not her passing away that makes me sad. It's the fact that I'm unable to be able to go and say goodbye to her. Because yeah, my mom lived a full life, but she lived so far away. She stays about a 2-hour plane ride from Cape Town. But I have no money to be able to get there. So I'm here busy selling all these things so that I can get enough money to be able to go and say goodbye to my mom. It was right there and then that I decided I need to go back home, speak to Lindsey, and see how we are able to support Paul. It was right there and then that right after I spoke to Lindsey, we decided to be able to help Paul with his flight. But right after we started jumping into trying to get a flight booked for him, we realized that it will only get Paul so far because even if he got to Johannesburg, he would still have to take a long bus ride to where his mom lived. It was then that I came back and I tried to speak to Lindsey again because now we would try and support Paul even more. But this didn't make sense because now we've already supported him. But something inside of me just told me, just do this. Just support Paul. Just show him an unconditional love. Unconditional love that is out of this world, that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And in the beginning, I was kind of fighting with myself. I was like, yeah, you know, my wife is right. Like, you know, we kind of like, you know, sticking our neck out here and, you know, it didn't make sense. But, you know, inside my gut, it was telling me that this was the right decision to make to support Paul. And that's what we decided to do. So we got Paul a bus ticket. We got him the money for the bus ticket, for the flight, and some spare money to be able to buy some food while he's in Johannesburg for the time that he'll be there. But Paul didn't share much about his life. The only thing that he shared was his mom passing away and he needs to get to Johannesburg for the funeral. But it was that later that evening that Paul called me and Paul's like, hey Darron, can you please come over to my house? And Lindsey's looking at me and I'm like, dude, like Paul asked me to go over to his house right now. I don't know what's up. And, but something's telling me you gotta go. And Lindsey's like, but it's 10 o'clock at night. Like, what are you gonna be doing at Paul's house at 10 o'clock at night? And it was there, I decided I'm gonna go over to Paul's house. So as I rocked up at Paul's house, Paul walked over to his bedside table, picked up a set of keys, walked over to me and said, I want to give you this so you can go and continue your work that you're doing with your kids. I want to give you this car so that you can go and work on it with your kids. I want to give you this panel beating set so you can go and teach your kids how to be able to do panel beating. I want to give you the spray gun so you can continue to work and build on the farm so that these kids will be able to have even more exposure to the different things that you're trying to teach them. I want to give you this welder so you can go and build them a huge soccer goal. What do you call that thing?
A goal.
Yeah, soccer goal. And anyway, Paul, I looked at Paul and I was like, dude, like, what's up, man? And like, he's like, I want to give you this because you know what, for the first time, somebody is showing me a different side of life. And we didn't talk much because I was like, you know what, Paul, I have to get home right now, but thank you so much. I will speak to Lindsey about this. So the very next day, I had to take Paul to the airport because I offered to take Paul to the airport. And it was then that Paul opened up about everything. He told me, man, for the past couple of days, I've been speaking to my brother. And I haven't seen my brother in over 25 years. Back when I was living in Johannesburg, I owned my own business, my own panel beating business. I had 3 houses and I had a wife. That is when my wife was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 28 years ago. The pain was so unbearable for me that I had trouble believing that God would do this to me. And I couldn't handle it. And I started drinking. That is when I became an alcoholic and I lost everything. I came down to Cape Town in search of work, hoping that things would get better, but it didn't. In fact, it only got worse. That's how I landed up here in Red Hill. But then as soon as I met you and Lindsey, as I was explaining to my brother, it was like God sent you directly to me. And the only words that my brother could say to me was, that's God. And he's giving you a second chance. And that just completely shook my world. That just by listening to what God has to say and listening to what his plan is, and for us to leave our plans by the door, he can really show you the true power of his glory and how he will lead you to great people and changing people's lives.